We live in a world where belief often replaces knowledge. People cling to comfortable illusions, even when those illusions quietly destroy their freedom. But what if blind faith isn't just a personal weakness? What if it's a tool of control? Hidden in Machiavelli's The Prince lies a dark warning. Blind trust turns individuals into obedient subjects, unable to think, resist, or see the truth for themselves. In this video, we'll uncover 10 principles from Machiavelli that expose how confirmation bias distorts judgment, why the illusion of readiness keeps people passive, and how human nature secretly sabotages itself. These are not moral lessons, they are insights into strategic psychology, power dynamics, and the Machiavellian mindset for those who want to understand control, survival, and influence inside competitive systems. Let's begin. Enjoy watching.
Human beings are not naturally seekers of truth, we are seekers of comfort. We prefer a reality that feels consistent with what we already believe, rather than one that challenges us. This tendency, known as confirmation bias, is one of the most powerful forces shaping human thought. It is not a small error of perception, it is the very architecture of how societies are controlled and how obedience is cultivated. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, and his observations remain disturbingly relevant. When people encounter new information, they rarely evaluate it neutrally. Instead, they filter it through a lens already clouded by prior beliefs. Evidence that supports those beliefs feels true, even when it is weak. Evidence that contradicts those beliefs feels false, even when it is strong. This is not just an intellectual mistake, it is an emotional defense mechanism. To admit that we might be wrong is to admit that the foundation of our worldview could collapse, and very few are willing to pay that price. Machiavelli recognized how rulers and leaders exploit this weakness. He understood that masses rarely want the naked truth. What they want is reassurance, symbols, and stories that align with their expectations. A ruler who feeds the public these illusions can maintain stability even while hiding the harsher realities of politics. In The Prince, he makes it clear, appearances often matter more than facts. A prince does not need to be truly virtuous, he only needs to appear virtuous. The population, already trapped in their own confirmation bias, will eagerly accept the image as the reality. This is the first step in the dark price of blind faith. Once people believe what they want to believe, they will defend their illusions as if their lives depend on it. And in a sense, they do. Because identity and meaning are built upon those beliefs. To challenge them is to strike at the core of who a person thinks they are. That is why societies build echo chambers, reinforcing the same narratives, protecting the same myths, and silencing dissent that threatens to pierce the illusion. Consider how this plays out in modern times. A population may believe its leaders are strong, wise, or guided by higher principles. If evidence surfaces that contradicts this, corruption, deception, incompetence, the mind works overtime to dismiss it. People tell themselves, that's an exception, or that's propaganda from the enemy. Anything is easier than rethinking one's faith in authority. The illusion of truth is far more powerful than truth itself. Machiavelli's genius was in realizing that rulers do not need to erase reality, they only need to shape perception. A leader can allow truth to exist in fragments, scattered across society, because as long as people do not want to see it, it remains invisible. The true battlefield is not out there in the world, it is inside the human mind, where bias filters what is allowed to exist. And this bias is not random, it has a purpose. It preserves stability. A society where every individual constantly questions authority, tradition, and ideology would be in chaos. People crave order more than they crave truth. Blind faith provides that order. It simplifies the world into good and evil, loyal and disloyal, safe and dangerous. Complexity is eliminated, doubt is silenced, and the ruler remained secure. But the cost of this is devastating. By surrendering to bias, people surrender their ability to grow. Independent thought requires confrontation with uncomfortable facts. It demands resilience in the face of uncertainty. When a society chooses the comfort of illusions over the pain of truth, it locks itself into stagnation. It can no longer adapt. It can no longer see danger clearly. It becomes fragile, vulnerable to collapse the moment reality intrudes too forcefully to be ignored. Blind faith, then, is not merely ignorance. It is active self-deception. People participate in their own control because it feels safer than rebellion. And leaders, fully aware of this, craft myths to be consumed like medicine. Myths of destiny, myths of national greatness, myths of moral superiority. Each story is designed to soothe doubt and reinforce obedience. This dynamic can be seen everywhere, from religious devotion to political ideology, from corporate loyalty to cultural identity. In each case, the pattern is the same. People do not follow truth. They follow the version of truth that protects their sense of belonging. Machiavelli knew this and advised rulers accordingly. If people need to believe their leader is just, then appear just. If they need to believe their cause is righteous, then present it as righteous. The perception is more important than the reality. The illusion of truth is therefore not a mistake to be corrected. It is a tool to be wielded. And in the hands of those who understand it, it becomes a weapon sharper than any sword. A people blinded by bias will fight to defend their chains, never realizing they are bound. They will argue against their own freedom, dismiss their own best interests, and protect the very structures that exploit them. This is the paradox of confirmation bias. It makes slaves who believe they are free. But there is an even deeper layer. Confirmation bias does not only protect individuals from discomfort, it creates collective myths that entire civilizations cling to. History is full. Empires rose on illusions of divine right, manifest destiny, or eternal supremacy. For a time, these illusions fueled unity and power. But when reality finally shattered them, collapse followed swiftly. What seemed unshakable dissolved overnight, because the foundation was never truth, it was belief. This is why Machiavelli's message is so dark. He did not tell rulers to guide people toward enlightenment. He told them to exploit their blindness. Because he knew that in the harsh world of power, survival belongs not to those who speak the truth, but to those who shape perception. Blind faith is not just tolerated, it is engineered. And so the trap of bias becomes a prison of the mind. Those who live inside it rarely know they are captives. They laugh at alternative views. They mock skeptics. They protect the illusion with ridicule, hostility, or violence if necessary. To question the illusion is to invite exile. To abandon it is to face isolation. Thus, the majority remain inside, reinforcing each other's beliefs, never realizing the bars of their own cage. The illusion of truth is seductive. It is comfortable. It offers meaning, stability, and belonging. But it comes with a price: the erosion of independent thought. The more we defend what we want to believe, the less capable we are of seeing what is real. And as Machiavelli warned, this blindness does not only weaken individuals, it weakens entire societies. A nation that cannot confront truth cannot prepare for the future. A people that choose illusions over reality set themselves on the path of decline. This is the first principle we must understand. The truth is rarely what controls people, the illusion of truth does. Bias does not simply distort judgment, it builds the very walls of obedience. And until those walls are seen, questioned, and dismantled, humanity will continue to pay the dark price of blind faith.
One of the most dangerous illusions societies embrace is the illusion of readiness. The belief that when the time comes,
they will be prepared to face crisis, conflict, or sudden change. Machiavelli recognized this illusion centuries ago. He warned that people often confuse the appearance of readiness with true strength, and that this false confidence creates a dangerous passivity. The belief that one is prepared becomes a reason not to prepare at all. When a people or a nation feels secure, they relax. They convince themselves that stability today guarantees stability tomorrow. They look at the strength of their armies, their wealth, or their traditions, and assume that these things will always protect them. But Machiavelli understood that fortune, fate, and human nature are unpredictable. He wrote that those who trust too much in promises, in appearances, or in the comfort of their current security are already on the path to defeat. The illusion of readiness works like a narcotic. It soothes anxiety, giving people a sense of control where none truly exists. Citizens believe that their leaders have planned for every danger. They believe their systems are resilient. They believe their values are unshakable. This belief allows them to stop questioning, to stop preparing, to stop adapting. They surrender vigilance, and in that surrender lies weakness. This passivity is not just political, it is psychological. On an individual level, people often overestimate their capacity to act in times of crisis. They imagine themselves as courageous, resilient, and decisive, but when reality strikes, when danger appears suddenly and without warning, most fall back into fear, hesitation, or obedience. The illusion of readiness creates a fantasy self, a hero in imagination, while the real self remains untested and fragile. Machiavelli insisted that rulers must never fall for this trap. A wise leader does not rely on appearances of strength, but constantly tests and trains the real foundations of power. He argued that armies built on mercenaries or temporary loyalty are worthless. A prince must cultivate discipline, loyalty, and vigilance, even when peace appears secure, because it is precisely in times of peace that the seeds of decline are planted. The illusion of readiness spreads most easily when there is no immediate threat to expose it. For ordinary people, however, the illusion is comforting. It allows them to live without the burden of constant vigilance. They place faith in their leaders, in their institutions, in their myths of national or cultural superiority. This faith feels empowering, but in truth, it creates passivity. People tell themselves, "We are ready," and so they do nothing to truly prepare. They leave responsibility to others. They silence doubts. They trust that the system will protect them. In this way, entire societies drift into complacency. This is why Machiavelli's warning is so relevant today. Modern nations often project power through appearances, military parades, symbols of unity, public statements of strength. Citizens see these displays and assume that readiness is real. Yet beneath the surface, corruption, division, or incompetence may be eroding the very foundations of resilience. But as long as the illusion holds, people will not demand reform. They will not challenge weakness. They will remain passive, believing in a strength that does not exist. The comfort of passivity has a hidden cost. It transfers power away from the people and toward those who manipulate appearances. Leaders who understand this dynamic can maintain control, not by preparing the nation, but by maintaining the illusion of preparation. A carefully staged speech, a symbol of authority, or the promise of stability is often enough to keep citizens docile. They want to believe that someone else has already done the hard work of vigilance, so they accept the illusion as reality. This illusion also feeds into cycles of self-sabotage. When people believe they are ready, they stop improving. When they believe they are safe, they ignore threats. When they believe they are strong, they dismiss warnings. And so, when crisis eventually arrives, they find themselves unprepared. History is full of nations that collapsed not because they lacked resources, but because they trusted too much in the illusion of readiness. They mistook past success for future security, and passivity sealed their fate. On a deeper level, this illusion reveals a paradox in human nature. People crave safety, yet the very sense of safety makes them vulnerable. True strength requires constant vigilance, constant questioning, constant adaptation. But human beings grow tired of vigilance. They seek rest, comfort, and certainty. And so they construct myths that tell them, you are ready, you are secure, you need not fear. These myths pacify the mind, but weaken the body politic. Machiavelli's advice was brutally pragmatic. Rulers must prepare for the worst even when no danger is visible. They must train as if war could come tomorrow, discipline their people as if fortune could turn against them in an instant. For him, readiness was not a feeling, it was a discipline, and it required constant effort. But for the masses, the easier path is always passivity. They prefer to live inside the illusion that readiness already exists, rather than endure the discomfort of preparing for realities that they do not want to face. The danger is that when the illusion breaks, it breaks suddenly. A people who believe themselves secure can collapse overnight when exposed to unexpected chaos. Confidence turns to panic. Loyalty turns to blame. The calm surface of society fractures violently because no real preparation was made beneath it. The very passivity that once felt safe becomes the source of destruction. The lesson here is clear. The illusion of readiness is more dangerous than open fear. Fear can provoke action. Fear can drive preparation. But false confidence produces paralysis. It convinces people that nothing needs to be done. It silences the voices that warn of danger. And when reality finally intrudes, it is already too late. This is why Machiavelli's principle is so dark. It is not enough to appear prepared. One must truly be prepared. And preparation requires discomfort, discipline, and sacrifice, things most societies resist. Rulers who exploit the illusion of readiness may hold power in the short term, but they doom their people in the long term. Citizens who surrender to passivity may feel safe for a time, but they set themselves on the path of collapse. The illusion of readiness is therefore not just a political trap, but a human one. It reflects our deepest desire to believe that stability is permanent, that someone else has already done the work of securing our future. But Machiavelli would remind us, fortune spares no one, and those who confuse appearances with reality will be destroyed by the very dangers they refuse to see. In the end, the illusion of readiness is not readiness at all. It is a sedative. It lulls individuals, communities, and nations into a false sense of security. It tells them they are safe while danger gathers at the edges. It whispers that they are prepared while their foundations rot. And it ensures that when crisis comes, they will be caught unarmed, unprepared, and unresisting. This is the comfort of passivity, and it is one of the heaviest prices of blind faith.
Machiavelli's insights cut deep because they force us to confront something few want to admit. Much of the destruction in human life is not caused by external enemies, but by our own nature. The patterns of failure, obedience, and submission are not only imposed from outside, they are generated from within. This is the tragedy of human psychology. People sabotage themselves while believing they are protecting themselves. Blind faith is not simply an external force of manipulation. It is an internal weakness that people carry and willingly reinforce. To understand this, we must look at how human beings respond to fear and hope. Machiavelli observed that fear can be a powerful tool for control, but he also understood that hope is equally important. People cling to hope because it softens the weight of reality. They invent stories that assure them of victory, prosperity, or divine favor. These stories give comfort, but they also create blindness. Hope makes people passive, willing to wait for salvation instead of acting decisively. Fear, on the other hand, can paralyze. Between the two, people often find themselves trapped in inaction, torn between the fear of danger and the hope that someone else will resolve it. This paralysis is the essence of self-sabotage. Self-sabotage takes many forms. On a personal level,
It is seen in the ways individuals avoid confronting difficult truths about themselves. They ignore flaws, justify failures, and cling to destructive habits because change is painful. On a societal level, it is seen in how nations ignore corruption, decay, or looming threats because acknowledging them would demand sacrifice. People sabotage themselves by refusing to confront what is uncomfortable. They build illusions that feel safe, but lead directly toward collapse. Machiavelli knew that rulers could exploit this tendency. A population that sabotages itself is easy to rule. Leaders need not always suppress rebellion. Often they only need to allow people's own nature to undermine them. Citizens who cling to false hope will not organize resistance. Citizens who fear uncertainty will not risk change. By trusting in illusions, people do the ruler's work for him, dismantling their own ability to act independently. This is why Machiavelli emphasized that power lies not only in external control, but in the careful manipulation of human weakness. The mechanism of self-sabotage operates through identity. People define themselves by their beliefs, their affiliations, their myths. To question those myths is to question the self. This makes it nearly impossible for individuals to escape destructive patterns, because doing so requires attacking the very foundation of who they think they are. Instead, they choose the comfort of consistency over the discomfort of truth. In this way, self-sabotage becomes not an accident, but a choice, though one often disguised beneath layers of denial. Consider the way societies often destroy their own strength through excess. When times are prosperous, people grow indulgent. They mistake abundance for permanence. They become lazy, soft, and entitled. They weaken themselves from within long before any enemy arrives. Machiavelli warned about this in The Prince. Fortune favors those who remain vigilant, but fortune abandons those who trust blindly in good times. Prosperity makes people careless. Comfort becomes poison. And when adversity finally comes, a society that has sabotaged itself through complacency collapses quickly. At the heart of this lies a fundamental contradiction in human nature. We want freedom, yet we fear the responsibility that freedom demands. To be free means to bear the burden of decision, risk, and uncertainty. Many people escape this burden by surrendering to authority or ideology. They trade independence for comfort. They tell themselves they are safe, when in truth, they are shackled by their own desire to avoid discomfort. This is self-sabotage on the grandest scale, the voluntary surrender of freedom in exchange for illusions of security. Self-sabotage also manifests in the way people resist knowledge. Information that threatens comfort is dismissed. Warnings are ignored. Whistleblowers are silenced. Instead of facing reality, people attack those who reveal it. This reaction is deeply embedded in human nature. It is easier to destroy the messenger than to destroy one's own illusions. Leaders exploit this tendency by positioning truth-tellers as enemies, ensuring that the population itself polices dissent. The people, in their eagerness to protect their illusions, sabotage their own chance of liberation. Machiavelli's dark brilliance was in recognizing that human beings do not need to be forced into submission. They often submit willingly. They sabotage their potential through fear, denial, and the desire for safety. This insight explains why tyrannies can last so long without constant repression. The people themselves reinforce the system. They internalize its myths. They silence their doubts. They destroy their own strength before any external force needs to intervene. The most insidious form of self-sabotage is moral complacency. People convince themselves that their leaders are virtuous, that their system is just, that their cause is righteous. These beliefs prevent them from recognizing exploitation even when it is obvious.
blind faith transforms into a shield against reality. In this way, morality itself becomes a tool of self-destruction because it stops people from questioning whether their values have been corrupted. A society that believes it is inherently good is incapable of seeing when it has gone astray. What makes self-sabotage so powerful is that it feels rational to the one who engages in it. People don't think, "I am weakening myself." They think, "I am protecting myself." They justify avoidance, denial, and obedience as sensible choices. They believe they are preserving stability, when in truth, they are undermining it. This illusion of rationality makes the pattern extremely difficult to break. And because it is rooted in human nature, it repeats across generations. History offers endless examples. Empires that overextended themselves while ignoring warning signs. Societies that clung to outdated traditions while the world around them changed. Leaders who ignored threats until they became crises. In every case, the seeds of collapse were sown not by external enemies, but by internal blindness. People sabotaged themselves long before they were conquered, and still, humanity repeats the cycle. The lesson here is not that people are doomed, but that they are vulnerable to their own weakness. To resist self-sabotage requires an extraordinary discipline, the courage to face discomfort, the strength to abandon illusions, the willingness to question identity itself. Few are capable of this, which is why Machiavelli's advice is so ruthless. He did not counsel rulers to uplift the people, but to accept their nature and use it strategically. He saw that those who understand the mechanics of self-sabotage hold a decisive advantage over those who remain trapped in it. The dark price of blind faith, then, is not only obedience to authority, but also obedience to one's own illusions. People sabotage their independence by defending myths that weaken them. They sabotage their freedom by clinging to beliefs that enslave them. They sabotage their future by denying truths that could save them. And they do all of this not out of malice, but out of the deep instinctive desire to feel safe. In this way, the greatest enemy is not the tyrant, not the oppressor, not the external threat. The greatest enemy is within. Human nature itself, afraid of change, addicted to comfort, seduced by illusion, becomes the architect of its own chains. Machiavelli saw this, and his lesson remains as disturbing now as it was in his time. Until people learn to master themselves, they will always be ruled by others. And as long as they sabotage their own strength, they will never truly be free.